Folks, if you're looking to cement those Azure cloud skills into your brain, then definitely working on these little tutorials is the way forward. And I've got here one that you work with an Azure SQL Server and you're connecting that through an Azure Private Endpoint, utilizing the Azure portal in this case, folks. But I thought I would take this one a step further and incorporate Terraform into it. It does come with a nice little architectural diagram there, and because I've been working in Azure now for a few months and I'm used to working with Terraform, I was able to get a picture of this here in my head and start to put things down on paper. And if you have followed my previous videos, folks, you will notice I shared a template with you guys in the past with regards to providing you with a base structure to work from, incorporating GitHub Actions. I just basically sat all the resources inside that, and then I was able to work my way through it and just iron out the faults and learn from those faults, folks, and I took a lot away from this here. If you did work in this in the portal, folks, that's absolutely no problem, because again, I've got a previous video where I show you how to use Terraform import. It would just be a matter of inserting a basic resource block from Terraform and then running your Terraform import for each resource that you create, doing the ClickOps way through the portal and just importing all those resources in, folks. And it's a good little learning curve too. I did hit a ton of blockers with this here, and it just embeds that knowledge, folks, definitely. I've been recently, if you've been following me as well, studying for my AZ 104, and I've just found that I've been in a loop of learning, forgetting, just at an exam level, and not actually getting into the deep knowledge, folks, of how these resources can help me when I'm doing my day job, because that deep knowledge is the thing that'll help you. And unfortunately, I was just studying for the exam and just focusing on areas where I was weak in, and then I was forgetting other stuff, and I just thought I need to get back to what I like doing best, and that's getting hands-on and breaking things, and that's how I learn, folks. So I did reset my goals there last week, had a talk with my team leader, and yeah, we agreed on that there, and I'll take the exam further down the line, but I think for now, just getting into the tutorials that are connected to the AZ 104 and also other stuff that I work on in my day job, it'll help me to no end. You can see here as I've been scrolling, folks, it's not a long tutorial, this one here, and you'll definitely learn a lot from doing this here, because this is something that you will see in the real world, and it's something I see. And like any of my tutorials are, folks, they're based on real world stuff that I work on every day, and it's nice to be able to do that there and know that you're learning something that's going to help you out when you hit the ground running with your job. Let's just jump into VS Code here. I've took that diagram and inserted it into here, folks, and like I say, if you're doing any of these tutorials and you're creating a GitHub repository, I've created a little markdown file here, and yes, I lent on ChatGPT to help me create this here based on the Terraform infrastructure as code, and I inserted this little diagram in and a link to that tutorial we just looked at there, folks. And this is nice to jump back to. I did put a load of commands in here as well, because there is a stage where you connect to the SQL Server through your private VM here, and I've put all the steps in there as well in order to do that. And that's just a nice little it's a compliment to this here tutorial, folks, to know that it actually works end to end, because there's things like network security groups I incorporated into this here, folks, and it actually states in the tutorial that it's not a requirement, it's not recommended to put a network security group on the Bastion host subnet, but I did, and I did look at what John Saville, who I follow there on YouTube, said about it, and he says yes, you can do it, but it's recommended not to. But I was curious, and when you're curious, folks, you'll learn more, because yes, I did get blocked from logging into the private VM, but once I tidied up my security, network security groups, then I was able to get in. Anyway, that's the markdown file. It's in there. This is the architecture, folks. Everything's shrunk down at the minute here. I've got a README file in as well from the past there that actually says how to run this repository here as a template and then utilize it anywhere. I've got an infrastructure here. I've got a parent directory that calls the modules. And initially I had just one monolithic code structure, folks, and that incorporated all these services. And then today I just broke it down into a modular breakdown, which is a lot more real world orientated, and it was again good practice, because what it did hit was a lot of circular dependencies. And when you look into my parent directory here, just calling the modules, you'll see a few depends on, and it lent heavily on the Key Vault module, because the virtual machines were using secrets from Key Vault, so was the SQL Server, and I had some nice blockers there that really reminded and revised me on some things, and also taught me a couple of things as well. I broke it down, folks. Say the Key Vault access policies got a module as well, because I had one there that was attached to the VM, gave me a little bit of bother with the circular dependency. I put it in there on its own, but also in the Key Vault, I attached a couple of policies directly onto the Key Vault itself. One for me as a user, and one for the service principal, which was the GitHub Action service principal there, folks. So that was a nice little learning curve to see how that operates. And definitely getting into access policies and Key Vaults, folks, is something that's worth knowing, because it can be role-based access control or access policies. I found recently on the tool that it's lent more towards access policies, which is a granular way of actually getting access to keys and secrets and certificates in the Key Vaults. So definitely dig into those there and understand them more of a not what you're doing, but more of the why you're doing it again, folks. Okay. So that's breaking it down into modules, folks. Definitely that's the real world way of doing things. Okay, so it can be utilized again in an easy to use manner. Okay, I've got a little data block in there. I've lent again on the dynamic blocks, folks, and that was reference the network module here. I put in here a network security group, and I put a dynamic block in there, and I was doing the association with the network security groups with the subnets using that. And I also had another little bit of jiggery pokery here with a for each loop inside the data block. That was quite interesting. I've seen that on a few occasions, the way that's been done. I just didn't fully understand it until I actually played with it myself, and I've stuck in a couple of little comments there just to remind me if I forget, and I'll know if I use that again. And in the data block itself there, the data YAML, it's the network security group rules, and I am referencing the subnet names here. And in that case, that data block we looked at there, that was able to then associate the network security groups with the specific subnet that they were supposed to be associated with. And that was a good little learning curve. So I quite enjoyed doing that there, because it gave me a lot of blockers, so it did. Even though there was a Microsoft Learn page that says about doing these rules, I did have to look into a few troubleshooting guides from Microsoft as well, where other users had did things like this, and they'd hit blockers with it too. So good learning curve there all round. Again, folks, the GitHub actions are exactly the same as before. I've got a plan, apply, and I've got a manual destroy there just to clean things up. This workshop I figured out cost me about $5 per day. I do have some free credits I get through work, so just be wary of that. You want to be, as well as turning off your one private VM, folks, that we've seen in the architectural diagram there. You want to be turning it off every day. Yeah, ideally want to be destroying your architecture as well, because the steps I've put in here with regards to installing what you need to do on the private VM to be able to communicate with your SQL server, they only take about 2 to 3 minutes to set up, going through these steps, folks. So it's no big drama, just destroying everything and then recreating again, okay, just to save yourself on those costs. As I always say, like anything, reach out if you've got any questions here. If you like what you're seeing, please like and follow for more. And as always, I leave this one with you and wish you all the best. Take care and good luck.